Mitch, this report came in 3 hours after before we started filming today, and it feels like it's kind of gone under the radar to me. The Boston Celtics announced Thursday morning that Joe Mazzulla has had the interim tag on his job title taken off, and he has been named the team's new head coach, replacing Ime Udoka, and has also received a contract extension. This kind of came as a surprise to me because Udoka got suspended for obviously what happened during the offseason. And then he just figured, oh, okay, he might come back. He'll be suspended for the entire season for violating team rules. And then Boston runs off the best record in the NBA so far going into the All-Star break. And it looks like Boston just figured, hey, this guy has no baggage. The team's just as good with him. Let's do it.
This is odd. I mean, listen, the Celtics are the one seed in the East and will be heading into the All-Star break, whether it's, by themselves or tied atop the East. That's one thing. He's 34 years old, Mitch. And there's always the argument in the NBA of, are you a good coach or do you just have good players? And the first person I look to, Mitch, when that argument comes about is someone like Erik Spoelstra. Oh, he was only good because they had LeBron, D, Wade, and Bosh. No, Mitch, I think it's safe to say Erik Spoelstra is a good coach because he lost LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, and the Heat, I believe, have only missed the playoffs once since that team broke up in 2014. It might be twice. This is very interesting because it seemed up until this point like Ime Udoka was going to be back next year. At least all signs pointed to that because we hadn't heard anything. But for Mazzulla now to be the head coach of the Celtics moving forward, to get the extension at the age of 34, and Brad Stevens, who was the former head coach for years in Boston, who is now the president of basketball operations, to do this, this is a big deal. I just think that it either means they realize they can move on without Udoka and Mazzulla is ready, or that Mazzulla got a huge vote of confidence from players if operations staff members went in and talked to the likes of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on, just the first two notable players on the Celtics. And this is actually somebody, Mitch, if you pull up an article on ESPN, it tells you where Mazzulla was before. This is somebody that I actually got to watch coach basketball in person because he was the head basketball coach at Fairmont State University before leaving in 2019. Fairmont is a team in the Mountain East Conference that would come to Notre Dame College during the winter. So without even realizing at the time that I was going to be watching a guy coaching college basketball as the head coach of an NBA team in the future, it's pretty cool to see where he's come from. And the chain reaction he had, he left Notre Dame College's coach, ended up leaving NDC and went to Fairmont State to take that position. So pretty cool how it's all worked around now. But this did come out of nowhere. And it's going to be interesting because now what happens to Ime Udoka? Is this something that goes deeper than just the Celtics organization? Is this something that other teams in the NBA won't want to deal with? Or, I mean, Mitch, this is a very good coach. This is a team that coached in the NBA Finals last year. Could he latch on with another team that has a head coach vacancy in the offseason? Obviously, we'll wait to see what certain teams do till after the season. But if it was just an organizational thing with the Celtics, Mitch, I would have to believe Ime Udoka is the head coach of some NBA franchise next season. Yeah. Once teams are done with, the turnover of firing a head coach and starting over, whatever it may be. But good for Mazzulla. I mean, like I said, 34, he has to be the youngest coach of the NBA. This is a big time spot for somebody his age, in his position. And I don't want to say lack of experience, but at the age of 34, you can only have so much experience as other coaches in the NBA that have coached for years upon years upon years. This is a good spot for him. And we'll have to see how far the Celtics go. At something on ESPN, as I pulled up this article, the best record at the All-Star break, how they fared over the past 10 seasons. Well, the Celtics are going to have the best record at the break. Going back, 8 years, every team in here, Mitch, has at least made it to the second round of the playoffs, if not the conference finals, NBA finals, or winning the NBA finals. Obviously, a couple of those teams like the Warriors, 14-15, 15-16, 16-17, the Rockets in 17-18 before losing to the Warriors, the Bucks twice, 18-19, 19-20, the Jazz, the Suns most recently in 21-22 before being ousted last year to the Mavericks, and now the Celtics with their situation to still be determined on how they fare in the regular season and playoffs, but he joins good company. We'll have to see how the Celtics fare for sure. And if they can hold on to the number one seed out of the All-Star break, because like I mentioned, Milwaukee, the hottest team in the NBA right now, 11-game win streak, just 1 game behind Boston.
No doubt. Going back to Mazzulla, by the way, he's 34, as you mentioned. Brad Stevens was 36, by the way, I believe, when he took the
Mm-hmm.
Celtics job a few years ago out of Butler. I believe he would be at least the third youngest coach in history, because there were two 33-year-olds that ended up taking over teams in the NBA. That was Sidney Lowe, former North Carolina State alum, and then Ryan Saunders, flip son. So there's that.